Attention birders, birdwatchers, and related civilians. It's time for Out There with the Birds, the podcast that's tastier than a deep-fried Twinkie and twice as nutritious, with your hosts Ben Lizdas and Bill Thompson III. Out There with the Birds is supported by Swarovski Optik, makers of the amazing EL series of binoculars and the BTX spotting scope, which combines the magnification of a scope with the clarity and comfort of binocular vision. Learn more at SwarovskiOptik.com. That's Swarovski followed by Optik with a K.com. Tamron camera lenses offer powerful performance that exceeds your imagination. Discover the full line of ultra telephoto zoom lenses at tinyurl.com/Tamron-BWD. Red Start Birding is your new resource for birding optics, gear, and expertise. Great birding starts at redstartbirding.com. And support also comes from the Reader Rendezvous Birding Adventures from Birdwatchers Digest. Come birding with us in our favorite places. Learn more at birdwatchersdigest.com/RR. And now, here they are, Bill and Ben.
Woohoo! Okay, Ben, it's time for Out There with the Birds number 29.
You keep counting?
I do. I have to count. I'm putting them up on the internet.
Oh, I'm too busy working on my bird list. I'm focusing on those numbers right now. Podcast numbers,
Not so much, huh?
Well, that's infinite. There's only a finite amount of birds, right? So
I don't know. DNA splitting could really help us here. We are sitting in the parking lot of the college, East Florida State College, I think it is, where the Space Coast Birding and Wildlife Festival is annually held. The festival ended earlier this week, and we had a great time, good festival, and now we're getting ready for our Reader Rendezvous, which starts tonight. But we thought we'd squeeze in a podcast recording real quickly here.
We just keep working, don't we?
We do.
We do not know how to rest.
We can't be stopped. You can only hope to contain us.
That's right. But, we get to go bird watching while we work, so it's really pretty well balanced that way, huh?
You guys actually call this work and say that with a straight face? Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'd like to welcome Clay Taylor. Clay Taylor from Swarovski Optik North America. He's here with us as a special guest. And Clay, welcome to Out There with the Birds.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start off by asking you about your very unusual career of the last 20 years.
Because there's a lot of people who are the movers and shakers at Swarovski Optik here in North America who most birders probably would never have had occasion to come across. But Clay is not one of those people. So
right.
To put it in some context for our listeners who have not met Clay, but I bet a lot of them have.
Mm-hmm. He is, Clay was the first pro staff birder. What's the official title that you have, Clay?
Right now, my official title is Naturalist Market Manager.
Okay. Which
means I'm a department of one.
Right.
I don't have anybody under me except for my field techs. Basically, back in 1998, Swarovski Optik was designing a new binocular. And this was going to be the one that came out of a study that they did in 1995 when they brought in a whole bunch of birders from around the U.S., top birders, brought them to Rhode Island and sat them down and said, okay, we're a hunting company. We know hunting, but we're amazed that bird watchers will pay really good money for really good binoculars. Tell us about bird watching. Swarovski Optik really didn't know. So in that room was Pete Dunn, Wayne Peterson, Francois Villemure from the Museum of Natural History, some really good heavy hitters, and they said, "Okay, this is what birdwatchers want." Mm-hmm. So Swarovski Optik started designing a birdwatching binocular. So somewhere around 1998, with the binoculars slated to come out in '99, they kind of looked around the table and said, "You know something? We're all optics guys, but we're not birders. Mm-hmm. We can't walk the walk. We don't talk the talk. We're going to need a birder." So at that point, I was working in a retail store in Connecticut, and I knew the people at Swarovski, so they interviewed me. And at the end of the interview, I said, "Okay, so what's next?" And they said, "What do you mean, what's next? Well, when do I hear about, when you made a decision?" They said, "Well, do you want the job?" I said, "Oh, okay, nice. That's easy, huh?" So I started in January of 1999, and at that point, the new birding binocular was a big mystery. The Austrians weren't saying anything about it, and we were scared to death that it was going to be technically superb and maybe so weird and ugly that nobody would in their right mind to be caught with wearing it around their neck. So when we finally saw the first EL, my first reaction was, it looks really nice.
Right.
And then we looked through it.
Sigh of relief.
Then we looked through it, and it was like, oh my God, how did you do this? And 3 months later, I showed you, Bill, at the Midwest Bird Symposium in Lakeside, and you had your old 10x42 SLCs that you dearly loved, and I gave you the 10x42 EL to look through, and you said, Clay, this thing is optical crack.
Yeah.
One look and you're hooked.
That's right.
And that's the way it went. So I got off on a really good start because the binocular was wildly successful. And I went to bird festivals.
Yeah.
And
You've been to a few bird
a
festivals.
lot of bird festivals.
Would you say you've been to more bird festivals than anybody else in the birding circuit?
I would imagine,
I would
yes.
think that's probably true.
Yeah, because
He's certainly been to more birding festivals than anyone else not in the birding circuit.
true.
That's for sure.
I mean, the guys at Eagle Optics were maybe running a close second, but I went to a lot of little ones here and there and everywhere. Just looking to create interest in birds and interest in Swarovski, of course. But with me, I'm not a sales guy. I'm there to go birding with them.
Right.
Show them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong with their binocular. Then when we got into the whole photography thing through the spotting scopes, so it's been a lot of fun. I could literally be on the road every weekend if I wanted to.
Right.
My wife would not be happy about that, but
Right.
there's times when she wants me out of the house, but there's other times when I have to come back and fix things. So,
Right. Well, it's nice to have a purpose.
True. This is good.
Of the festivals, name a few of ones that you've really enjoyed over the years.
My favorite one of all, a lot of festivals have come and gone.
Right.
We get used to Rio Grande Valley and Space Coast being there again and again and again. My favorite one of all was the Aleutian Goose Festival in Crescent City, California, which was way up in Northern California. Absolutely gorgeous place, and it was started because the Aleutian goose was down to less than 10,000 birds, and they wanted to help save the goose.
Right.
The goose numbers are back to almost 100,000 now, and the festival just kind of fell apart from lack of support and interest and all that, but it was a beautiful place. The really big festivals are good because they run so beautifully. They run so well. Everything is taken care of. You have great field trips, great guides, great facility and all that. But the little ones are fun just because you explore and you learn and you meet new people and you explore new places.
Right.
So there's a place for all of them. Go to a big festival to appreciate and see the vendors and all that. Go to a little festival to go to a place you've never been to and let somebody take you around and show you where the hot spots are.
Right. Right. And when you're at a festival, you're out in the field just engaging with people, talking to them about your equipment, but you're not actually selling stuff.
No, I'm just being a birder.
Yeah.
And helping them find things. Usually I'm on a field trip, so there's an official leader. Sometimes I'm the official leader, but it's better when I'm not the official leader, so he can do all the hard work and I can just say, in my scope.
Right. Right. Nice.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other trends that I know you and I have discussed before and you've seen over the years, I'm sure, is the rapid rise of photography among birders. And it seems like it's taken a couple of different paths.
Yep.
Tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Okay.
I would say one thing to put in within context, Clay has a photography background, so it
Right.
seems like you're really well suited to kind of see the trends and kind of understand perhaps the motivation of what's getting more people behind lenses.
I definitely have the 100-mile view here because when I started birding in 75, I was a photographer. I was a race car photographer, so I had a camera and a telephoto lens, and that's how I birdwatched for 2 years. I did not own binoculars until 1977. And so I was out there with my 35 millimeter film camera, manual focus, manual exposure, all that stuff, and you had to take your pictures and wait 2 weeks to see if you got them and all that. There were very few birders that carried cameras back then.
Yeah.
The de rigueur was you had a little field notebook, you wrote down all your numbers, you did little sketches on rare birds, and you submitted it to your rare records committee, and they judged your record on your artistic talent. I had camera, so if I saw something really cool, I showed up with a slide 2 weeks later, and they went, "Oh yeah, I guess you did, huh?"
Right.
So, through the 80s, I watched auto exposure and autofocus and all this stuff get more and more popular. But really, since digital kicked in probably in the last 10 years,
Right.
we've been seeing far more birders carrying cameras. And it started with the point-and-shoot cameras because back 15 years ago, a good point-and-shoot camera had a 4x optical zoom and a 6x optical zoom. Now we've got them with 80x optical
Right.
zooms, which is all of a sudden making bird identification and bird recording, a whole different animal. And now, I mean, look at rare records committees. If you submit a sketch of a rare bird to a records committee, they kind of laugh at you and say, "Where's the picture? Where's the photo?"
Right, or the video.
Yeah, exactly. So the culture has changed in birding for sure. And I've heard about other parts of the world, evidently in South America. Very few people even use binoculars. They just use their super zoom cameras.
I was just over in Taiwan, and we went to a place where there were some rare vagrant finches being seen in this little city park. And there were probably 300 to 400 people there, all taking pictures with these huge cameras.
Yep.
And I said, I didn't know bird photography was so big. He said, well, these are birders.
Yep.
They just bird with their cameras.
Yep.
And it's because the camera technology is so much more a part of the culture there.
Sure.
It's also a sign of prestige that you have a really nice camera and stuff like that. Kind of like optics can be here.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's kind of taken a couple different directions. We've got the people that are just carrying a camera just to record what they saw. Or if they don't know what it is, send it to their friend or put it up on Facebook and say, what the heck is this?
Right.
We've got the people that want to get really nice pictures. So they'll go buy a good 100 to 400 zoom and a nice body and all that stuff. And they're trying to get... Now, whether they ever make a big print or not, probably not. Because one of the things I ask when I do a workshop is, okay, how many of you in the past year have made more than one 11 by 14 print? And very rarely do I see more than one or two people raise their hands.
Right.
So we're all looking at them on our tablets and on our computer screens and putting them up on our Facebook pages and Instagram and all that, which is totally fine. But it's just there's a different mentality behind why I'm taking this picture.
Right.
And then we've got the cell phone,
Right.
which is really changing the way we think about photography because cell phones are darn good. They're not the be all and the end all.
And getting better.
Yeah, and for birding, you can put it up on your binocular, which is easy to do but hard to master. You can put it on your spotting scope, which is just as easy to do and far easier to master. So spotting scopes and phones are becoming almost, in some cases, the way to record what it is you're seeing, because now you can plug all your pictures into your eBird lists, and because before you couldn't put photos on eBird.
Right.
Now you put up your list and you can just tag in all the birds you just saw on your trip, and boom, it's up in eBird, and then Cornell has fun using your pictures for what they want to do.
Right.
Which is, and photos are now shared everywhere. I put up a nice picture on Instagram, and boom, it shows up all over the place, which is fine by me. And I'm not saying, oh my God, that's my intellectual property. No, if I put it out there, let people play with it, let people enjoy it, let people get use out of it. Because the first thing I'll do if I see something I'm not sure of or somebody asks me something, I'll just grab the phone, go to Google, type in a bird name, sedge wren, hit images, and say, here, that's what one of these things looks like.
Right.
You can scroll through 100 different pictures of a sedge wren and see if what you just saw out in front of you was what's on the phone.
Right. And what's your rig that you use now for photography?
Spotting scope for sure. I mean, I've got the telephoto lenses still. They sit on my shelf. I don't use them. I do everything with the spotting scope, but I've always been a scope guy, even from way back. I actually owned a spotting scope before I owned a binocular. So for me, whether I'm here in Florida, I just out on Black Point Trail a little while ago, or I go to Costa Rica or wherever, spotting scope is there. I have the cell phone, and I'll have one or maybe two different DSLRs depending on what I want out of it. I've got a Panasonic Lumix that I really love for video. I've got a 24 megapixel Pentax that I do for my big prints. And Swarovski Optik just came out with the lens for the full frame cameras, the FX sensors. So I've got a borrowed Nikon D810 that I got to get back to work one of these days. But playing with that and learning how that's a little different than the other ones. But so for me, I kind of choose the camera depending on what the bird is and what I expect to do with that picture. If it's an ID photo, I could do the phone, and it's fine. Zoom it all the way up, shoot a bunch of shots, boom, send them up to Facebook and say, hey, everybody come check this out. The better sensor cameras I do for the prints.
Yeah. We were talking about festivals today when we were having lunch. You now are a little bit behind the scenes on a festival. and down near in your hometown, your new hometown, your
Yes.
southern hometown.
My adopted hometown.
Tell us what that festival is and how people can find out about it.
Yeah, 9 years ago, I left Connecticut, where I'd lived all my life, and moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, just because I was tired of winter.
And you're really getting a Texas accent now, I'm noticing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, y'all. And also the birding is kind of good in Corpus Christi, in that there was a contest for many years called the birdiest city in the United States.
Right.
And Corpus Christi won it every year. Drove San Diego, California, and Los Angeles, California wild. So a couple of years ago, we were sitting around mulling over things, and I've always wanted to do a bird festival in Corpus Christi, and a couple of other people said that would be a good thing. So we decided, okay, let's start a Corpus Christi birding festival. And so you can call it the Corpus Christi Birding Festival if you want. But I said, hey, let's call it the birdiest festival in North America. Because last year we had 272 species in 6 days.
Wow.
Which
is a record, I would say, right?
It's pretty darn close if it's not. It was the first one was in April of 2017. I'm sorry, we're in 18 now. 2017. It was a formative year. We had okay attendance. The birding was excellent. The next one is coming up in middle of April of 2018. I think it's the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, something like that. The website is up. You can register and come on down. The great thing here is you can get warblers. You're only...
it's kind of like, for those of us that live up north still, it's kind of like getting a jump start on spring.
Yeah, absolutely. You get warblers. You can get the Texas specialties. You know, I've got green jays and kiskadees in my backyard. You can get waterfowl. There's some hawks are still migrating. Unfortunately, the whooping cranes are gone, but everything else is there. All the herons, a lot of shorebirds. So it's pretty neat. And within a 50 to 100 mile radius of Corpus Christi, you can make up a pretty darn good list. And the weather's nice too. It's not too hot yet. It's nice.
Okay. Well, Clay, thanks so much for stopping by and talking to us here out there with the birds. Ben and I we'll record a little bit on the backside of this after this, but I noticed that
I would say post Rendezvous, because we got to do the Out There with the Birds Global Big Year Challenge checklist update, and some things like that. So
all right, Clay, thanks a lot.
Certainly.
All right, Ben, we've reconvened for another little brief chitty chat out there with the birds, number 28, I think it is, or so. We're at the end of a couple of weeks of birding.
Birding here in Central Florida?
Yep, Central Atlantic coastal Florida.
Yeah, takeaways, Bill?
Well, takeaways, I'm taking a whole van load of stuff away. Driving back to Ohio, back into the snow belt.
Yes.
But it's been great being down here. It's been nice to get away from winter. It hasn't been totally warm and sunny every day. It's been windy some days, a little chilly. Haven't had a ton of rain, which has been nice. One rainy day, really. But it's been great. It's great to see old friends, great to meet new friends. We had the Space Coast Birding and Wildlife Festival first. We had a couple of days off when we did some video work and some scouting. Then we had our Reader Rendezvous, Birding Basics and Beyond. And got a bunch of people here, like 25 people or something, 20
people.
So.
That sounds about right.
Totally fun.
What a great time birding. What a great time birding. I mean, I think of as we were going down the checklist, all of the waders that we saw here, pretty much everything but least bittern, which you could and probably should get around here. That was kind of a miss.
Yeah, they seem to be, I don't know, nobody knows whether it's just a seasonal thing, like it's a weird winter, or whether it's a deal having to do with the storms that came through here over the last few months, whether that's wiped out some food or something. But yeah, no least bittern, and I think maybe only one seen during the festival the week before. So too bad, but that's not a bad miss.
All of the wetlands here. When I think of the habitats that we had to bird, the piney woods where red-cockaded woodpecker, Bachman sparrow, all the coastal wetlands, great for going out with a large group of people. We get a whole row of spotting scopes out. They get great looks and studying, all the different egrets, snowy egret, little blue heron, tricolored heron, great egret, cattle egrets, and just reddish egret. And these birds are kind of standing still. They're charismatic. It's a really easy place. Birds. It's a really easy place to bird and have a lot of fun and see a whole ton of stuff. And then you can go from there to the beaches. And the coastal areas, and then you got your wandering tattlers and your turnstones, or
Well,
not wandering tattlers. No.
That would have been a great.
Yeah, no. You got your turnstones and your sanderlings.
Sanderlings.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm imagining them scurrying around right on the water's edge, and wandering, but really they're
Avoiding the wandering
yes,
tattlers
yes, exactly.
that are backed out from flying in from the West Coast.
And I think I made a first really strong step in my New Year's resolution, which was, kind of conquering gulls.
To eat mayonnaise.
No, not eating mayonnaise, but gulls. I mean,
gulls.
Gulls. Went to Daytona and did that gull workshop with Amar Ayesh, who that was the first time I'd met him in person. Facebook friends with him, but I think that was the first time I met him in person. Super knowledgeable guy, really gracious with his information, good teacher, and walked away with a head full of gull stuff that I think we're going to be able to retain.
A head
which is
full of
nice.
gull stuff.
That's right.
That sounds like a sort of a rock opera song from the 70s.
It might be.
Had a head full of gull stuff.
It might be. So it was a jam-packed week of some fantastic birding. Throw on a painted bunting.
Male painted bunting.
Male painted bunting. We had female painted buntings
Yep,
as well. Just a little slice of heaven down here.
Really. And so we should probably talk about the Out There with the Birds Global Big Year Challenge trademark. How are you doing on that?
I think I made some serious ground. I think in terms of the birds that we had down here, you and I pretty much probably got all the same birds. There's one bird that you got that I didn't get, I think, which was that frigate bird.
Oh, you didn't get the frigate bird?
Didn't get on it.
Are we doing a Global Big Year Challenge? So you might
Yeah.
get that in Honduras.
You're right.
So does that make you feel better?
Yeah,
and I'm probably not
maybe,
going to get a pine grosbeak in Honduras. So you still, if we end up and I'm one down on December 31,
Yeah.
I'm jumping in a plane.
I have concerns about your upcoming trip to the San Diego Birding Festival, Bill. I have grave concerns about that, what it means for my.
I'll tell you what.
Standing
would,
here.
Would it make you feel better if I birded with one arm tied behind my back, or like an eye patch or something, or maybe blinders?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll consider that.
Vaseline on the lenses of your binoculars. That's going to be my little prank for you.
Okay.
Another thing I'd like to do is give a shout out to the Shamrock and Thistle pub here in Titusville.
Right.
Hosted us for some incredible dart matches there.
Right down
You
to
pretty
the
much
cuticle
kind of-
nibbling.
Yeah, just still won every series though.
But that's okay. It was very close. I mean,
But I would say any listeners who are in the Titusville area, the Mel Gibson portrait there is
Just
really,
that alone.
that's worth going there. They also have one of my favorite beers on tap, which is really hard to find. That Bellhaven Scotch Ale that you tried.
it was nice.
Yeah, solid recommendation. You can find it on tap somewhere.
After 2 sips of that,
You were just
I was on. I was
yeah.
on it with the darts.
Yeah, Mel was shining it down upon you.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. Thistle and or Shamrock and Thistle, I think
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
And it's on Route 50 in Titusville. We're not paid endorsers. In fact, the money went the other direction.
That's true.
So we had a few
true.
beers while we were playing
I wonder
darts.
if we should have leveraged that better while we were there.
Really? We're media. We're a media empire. Here playing darts and drinking beer, and you're. All right. Well, so what's let's see what's next on. Well, we didn't talk about Global Big Year Challenge numbers. Do you know what your number is approximately?
No. I started to count, but then So one of the things is that we had this bus mishap on the tour, right? So on the tour, we're final stretch,
Right.
Heading back from Vera Wetlands, the last tour of the day. We are 5 miles, less than 5 miles from
3
the
miles.
exit to our hotel.
I wouldn't say it's a mishap.
Okay,
Because that sounds like an accident.
it's true. Well, it was unintended.
Engine trouble.
Unintended engine trouble. But this is what makes, and I'm not tooting our own horns here, I'm talking about Adam and Gina Kent. This is what makes good leaders and separates good leaders from great leaders. We're pulled off on the side of the highway, and they just jump right into action. Those two, they're charming personalities.
Teaching.
Talking about bird calls, playing kind of games. I mean, everyone enjoyed that little stop. And granted, it's probably because it was 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. So, if you're going to breaking down 3 miles from the exit to your hotel is not a bad spot.
I'm so glad we left Viera a little early because.
But I think that is when people go on tour and you have leaders who are really great bird watchers, it enhances the trip. But having that extra special social skills and charisma of being people who you just like spending time with, and that can take a situation like that and turn it into something fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear a single complaint about that. And granted, it's at the end of a week of great birding, so
Right.
hats off to Adam and Gina. And if you're looking for some bird guiding services here in Central Florida, I couldn't recommend them more.
Or elsewhere. Adam also guides elsewhere. I mean, he's taking tours.
Great hearing about their research that they do on the snail kites. That was fascinating talk about those. And seeing the snail kites sound like they're kind of stabilizing in their population. It seems like they're adapting to those introduced mussels. So
we saw some snail kites, which was cool. I'm not really sure where our bird list ended up for the rendezvous, but it was somewhere well into the 130 plus, I believe.
Oh, I think it's north of 140.
Yeah.
So
that's great. We got some new ones today. All right, so you and I are headed back to the snow belt.
Heading back to the snow belt. We got a month there to kind of. I'm going to chase down some birds. I think I'm inspired now that I feel like I'm within striking distance of you with the Global Big Year Challenge. So I need to maybe track down a northern hawk owl, some Bohemian waxwings. We're going to be up in northern Wisconsin this coming weekend for a cross country ski meet. So bringing my binoculars and hoping to add a couple more ticks that you likely aren't going to get, my friend.
Dream on, my friend.
Yeah.
I want you to win this just for your own self-esteem.
If it goes like those darts games, I know.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right.
Take care.
Peace out, Bill.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Out There with the Birds. Special thanks to Swarovski, our optic sponsor. Learn more about their fine line of birding and lifestyle optics at SwarovskiOptik.com. That's Swarovski followed by optic with a K.com. If you love to take photos of birds, Tamron telephoto camera lenses offer powerful performance that exceeds your imagination. Discover more at tinyurl.com/Tamron-BWD. Your source for the best birding optics is Red Start Birding. Great birding starts here. RedStartBirding.com. Finally, we're also supported by the wonderfully enriching Reader Rendezvous birding trips from Birdwatchers Digest. Your next birding adventure starts at birdwatchersdigest.com/RR. Tune in next time for some more audible emissions from these birding magicians, Bill and Ben. Until then, this is Phoebe reminding you to keep your timber doodles peantin' and your brown creepers creepin', and we'll see you out there with the birds.